Yeah, let's all bow our heads, kneel down for a word of prayer. Dear God, thank you. Thank you very much for a new Sabbath day. Thank you that you was with us, that you went with us. And during the last week, we all had our things to do, and especially Emilis had a long travel. Thank you that he is home safely, and thank you also that we can all now gather together over Zoom. Please bless us as we are also as we use technical equipment, that it will all work out, and that the internet will stay stable. We also want to pray for the children that have their own separate program. Please bless Janice, who is leading the children now. We want to ask you for a blessing that you will be with us with your Holy Spirit and grant us your mercy to understand the topic that we will discuss today. We thank you and praise your holy name. Amen. Dat komt omdat de zon precies in het scherm schijnt. Zo. Kan er ook niks aan doen. I have shared my screen, and if I'm when I'm right, everyone can see what I'm doing now. I made a red circle. Is it visible? Now it's gone. All right. So I want to show you a history or two histories that are compared with our own history. The first line is the line that we will discuss. This is the line of the third Diadochi. And this line will tell us about our own history, and that will be the history from 1989 until the Sunday Law eventually. So this is a lot of information, and that's why I choose to do it on this digital way, to not spill a whole pencil on the whiteboard, and it will take a lot of extra time. So I already prepared the lines so that you can easily read what we will discuss together. Oh no. That's a trouble. Even kijken maar. I made a mess out of it because I did Ctrl-Z one time too much. Is that good? Yeah? Okay. That's so interesting. Bear with me. I don't know where it was. I think it should be like this. All right, back in business. So we will start with the story of the third Diadochi. The third Diadochi starts in the period shortly after the death of Alexander the Great. And why do we want to look at the third Diadochi? And later on, we will have the middle line. We see the World War I. And why are we looking at this? It's really messing up. I cannot do interactive stuff. because all the extra stuff is in. I did not know that if I do Ctrl-Z, then it jumps to another place of the page. I should actually just maybe erase it, delete it all.
Yeah, but if you do Ctrl-Z, it's all back.
Yeah, but I just do like this. I make a red circle like this.
Okay.
And now I do one time Ctrl-Z, and then it jumps to there.
Is there not another pencil where you can present like you do like and then it disappears again?
Je kan toch gewoon met je...
Je hebt toch een cursor, gewoon met je muis aanwijzen?
Als je op je knopje duwt, dan doe je gewoon...
Oh ja, and this is one you can see it as well. Oh yeah. Yeah, and what Lisanne is saying as well. Okay, now let's hang on. Let's hang on. Okay, why do we want to look at these two histories? Because we want to know the history of the time we are living in now. For example, when we look at World War I and World War II, we learn to know more about World War III. And the relation is about the Diadochi Wars, Diadochi War number 3 and the Diadochi War number 4, and the relation with the First World War and the Second World War is that these wars are connected. For example, the First World War is connected to the Second World War with an armistice in between. So they have a break, a pause, and they don't fight anymore. But you can see it as one war. It is a nationalistic war, and they have the same players. You have Germany, and you have the Allies, the threefold enemy, and that's also what we see in the Third and the Fourth Diadochi War. We see the same players, like the King of the North, against the threefold enemy, and that's what it makes very interesting to compare these two histories. And there's a lot of interesting overlapping. We know that in the time we are living now, we don't look at the so-called hot wars. We look at the information wars. And there are two quotes from Ellen White. One is written in 7 BC 973.4, and there it is written that the first war in heaven was a war between mind and mind. It was an information war, and we see the same language used in Great Controversy 663, and that the last war, the utmost last war that will be fought against Satan, will also be an information war. We know the story that you have the second coming, then you have the millennium, that people will be 1,000 years in heaven, and afterwards Jesus and the city will come down, and then God will resurrect all the people that are being resurrected to die the second death, so to say. And we know that then Satan will also be proclaiming that he's the one who resurrected them, and then they see the holy city and they want to fight against the holy city, but then God will stop this by showing somehow in the air the wicked people, the whole history of the 6,000 years of human history. And in this history, what God is showing them, they will see that actually Satan is the one who made all the problems. And then by showing them only this information, they will turn against Satan. So this is also a war, what is seen, what is a information war, and it is fought from the inside out. So these are interesting quotes to determine what kind of war are we in now at the moment. There's also a resource in www.heritagehistory.com where there's also a person that is telling the same, that the fourth Diadochi War was just a continuation of the third. And it is about Antigonus and his son Dimitri were at war simultaneously with Ptolemy in the south, Seleucus in the east, and Lysimachus in the north. So let's jump into the line of the third Diadochi. We see at the first waymark, we see the Battle of 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗏. And the Battle of 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏 is an interesting battle because the story, how it went. For example, you had on one side you have Eumenes. He's one of the generals that lasted after Alexander the Great died. We have a lot of generals, and Eumenes was one very mighty general. He also was a general who had the silver shields. It was a group of very talented fighters, and they were in a battle with Antigonus. And if this is the battle, if this is the side of Antigonus, and you have on the other side, you have Eumenes, they fight against each other. And what the thing is they storm towards each other, and there comes a big cloud of dust. And this cloud of dust doesn't make it able to show over the whole area. And so they are blinded to see what Antigonus is doing. And he is very clever, so he sends a group of soldiers on the backside of Eumenes' people and soldiers, and here's this baggage train. And this baggage train that is the place where all the treasuries, their belongings, even their wives and children, and everything that they earned during the whole time of their life that they were fighting. So actually, they took everything that they possessed. And then Antigonus said to these people, "Hey, if you turn in your leader, Eumenes, and you turn him into, you give him to me, then I will give you back your baggage train." And so they do it. They actually give Eumenes to get their baggage train back. And Antigonus takes Eumenes and kills him. So this war is also a war that you can say it is fought from the inside out. And they took the baggage train, and then with talking, they say, "Hey, we have all your belongings. Give us your general." And now it is that's the way how this war was ended. And after this war, it is interesting that Eumenes is killed. He's gone, and now Antigonus calls himself after that battle the master of Asia. You can compare him like being a superpower at that moment, because he was already powerful, but now he took one general out who was even as powerful, or maybe more powerful than himself. And he fought this war from the inside out with elephants. And after this battle, he's also behaving a certain way. He's behaving like the master of Asia. He starts to kill everyone that is not who's a threat to him. And he even kills 𝗶, that was another general, and this 𝗶 is killed because it was also a threat to Antigonus, and so he's behaving like a dictator, and that's also what this waymark is showing, that after winning a battle, he is now behaving like a dictator by killing people that are not in line with his plans. And by behaving like this, the three allies, Cassander, Lysimachus, and Ptolemy, are getting together and saying, "Hey, this is a problem. He is a big threat to us as well." And they try to consolidate, to be together against Antigonus, and to say to him, "Hey, let us talk together and have some agreement." And they put him on an ultimatum. They say, "We want you to be a general that is fair to us, and that we are splitting the territory fairly to each other." And they give him an ultimatum to share his power. And that is the moment that Antigonus is not listening to it, but he even goes into war with these three allies. And this is actually where the third Diadochi then starts. And this is it starts by Antigonus invading Syria. And also in that period, Syria is also called like a sphere of influence. We're now at the fourth waymark. And Ptolemy was and Antigonus was successful. He defeated Ptolemy, who was reigning in the area of Egypt in the south, but also in Syria, called Syria. And he was successful to invade Syria. And Antigonus takes much of his territory. And then we have this famous sentence, until the borders of Egypt. That is an important thing to understand, that he comes even unto the borders of Egypt. So he invades Syria unto the borders of Egypt. And of course, the son of Antigonus, who is called Demetrius, is always with him. And after winning the region of Syria, Antigonus goes back to his more in the region of what we call now Turkey or Greece, that area, and he goes back, but leaves his son Demetrius to secure the area, to guard it. And then we go to the next waymark, that's called the Battle of Gaza. And we know that the area of Gaza is also the area of Raphia, because Rafah is now still the city called over there. We will see that it will be in line later on in other histories. So Ptolemy comes back. Ptolemy was defeated at the fourth waymark and comes back later on to fight against Demetrius, as in the moment that he discovers that only Demetrius is left behind. He's still young. He's not so experienced in fighting the wars. And then this battle of Gaza starts because Demetrius was actually told by his counselors not to fight against Ptolemy, but he doesn't listen. He stays in the area and he fights with Ptolemy, and then he loses. Then he loses the battle. And in this battle, it was Ptolemy together with Seleucus, fighting against Demetrius, and Demetrius loses. And after the victory, Seleucus, he was not really he was a good general, but he did not have his own territory or before, and he did not have a big army. But after this battle, he splits up. He leaves Ptolemy from the Egypt, and he went to go back north, and he tries to go to Babylon.
So here in this history, Seleucus was still a general of Ptolemy.
Yeah.
Seleucus was working in the army.
Seleucus was, actually in it for his own. He was not a mighty person at that moment.
Well, he was already on his own here.
Yeah, he chose to join Ptolemy.
Okay.
Yeah, how that? Yeah.
Because there is a history where Seleucus originally was a general of Ptolemy.
Yeah, you have by Waymark 7, you have the Seleucid dynasty, and you have the Battle of Gaza. There's this change. You see, Seleucus is here at the Battle of 𝗃𝗵𝗃. Together with Python, he is fighting with Antigonus against Eumenes.
That is Seleucus, but is he there fighting in the army of Ptolemy? Is he the king of the south there, Seleucus?
Ptolemy is the king of the south.
Yes, yeah, I know, but
and at the Battle of Gaza, he is part of the king of the south.
Seleucus.
Yeah, that's how I understood it.
Yeah.
In this third Diadochi.
No, I just know the original first Seleucus was not an independent general. He was a general of the king of the south.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, and I'm not sure where that is, if that is in this history or even before this history already.
I think it is in this history.
Where he splits from Ptolemy and he starts to become his own king, basically.
Yeah, and that is at the Battle of Gaza. You see that he then takes some troops, and then he starts to.
He takes Babylon.
He takes Babylon.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's the battle, the Babylonian War, you could say also. And
that's there. Okay.
Yeah. So we discussed now number 5, Battle of Gaza. Demetrius is defeated by Ptolemy and Seleucus, and Seleucus afterwards now goes to Babylon, and later on starts to have his Seleucid dynasty. I see now that I have written here at the 6th waymark that also to the borders. I don't know if I mixed it up with the 4th waymark or that it is, because I think it belongs to the 4th waymark. I will check it out later if that's correct. But the thing is that we The thing is that we see that also here. There's the peace treaty. There's a treaty that is made. Antigonus makes peace with Cassander, Lysimachus, and Ptolemy. And Cassander, Lysimachus, and Ptolemy, we already saw them here at the third waymark as being the three allies. And the peace of the dynasts is between Antigonus and the three allies at the sixth waymark. And we see that this peace of the dynast is called the end of the third Diadochi War, because there is, from this point on, peace until the start of the fourth Diadochi War. And so this is an important waymark where we can see that the end of the war, the third Diadochi War, and who the players are.
There's peace between
Antigonus at one side and the three allies. Because we know that Ptolemy defeated Demetrius at the fifth waymark, and as soon that happened, Antigonus is the one, his father, the father of Demetrius, is the one who hears about the news of the defeat of his son, and then returns back to Syria, and then takes back this territory also again. Maybe also until the borders. Maybe that's why I mixed it up. And by taking back the territory of Syria and coming in contact with Ptolemy, the three allies, he says that he now wants peace, because on his way to get back Syria, the area of Syria, he meets the Nabateans and Seleucus, because Seleucus went up to up in the north, in the region of Babylon, and the Nabateans. And the Nabateans are the people, the descendants of Ishmael. And the later on who are the Arabs. So they are the people of the Arab countries. And they are not nice to Antigonus. They are harassing him, and so it takes away his attention. So he makes the peace of the dynast, and then takes care of the Nabateans and Seleucus. And then this Babylonian War starts. And it's interesting to know that during this Babylonian War is between Antigonus and Seleucus. And Antigonus is he lost. Seleucus wins this battle.
Seleucus wins.
Yeah, Seleucus wins. And then at the seventh waymark, the Seleucid dynasty starts. And we know that at the Battle of Ipsus, it is the battle where Antigonus finally dies. And then the generals go from 5 generals to 4 generals.
So after Seleucus and Ptolemy had won the Battle of Gaza, Seleucus goes to Babylonia, and then although Antigonus makes a peace treaty, kind of, with the three allies, also Seleucus. They don't then, no, not with Seleucus, with 𝘂𝗫𝗎, Lysimachus, and Ptolemais.
The three allies. Yeah.
And not Seleucus. And so then he starts this war with Seleucus. This Babylonian war.
Yeah, if there are no questions, if there are any questions, what I can imagine, because doesn't go also fluently as it should be, but I think we are having our third Diadochi on the line.
What was the to the borders now?
That was
the
the
peace?
it was the fourth waymark, where Antigonus attacks Ptolemy in his spheres of influence in Syria, and he attacks Ptolemy all the way until the borders of Egypt.
And what was the to the borders then for the peace of the dynasts?
I don't know.
You don't know.
Maybe I wrote it on the wrong.
No.
Antigonus dies at the Babylonian War?
No, he doesn't. He's defeated.
Oh, I'm defeated.
He was there in the
Oh yeah,
fourth.
Ipsus he dies.
Oh, here's the line that Tess drew on the board.
So there is to the borders.
There's some to the borders. Now I don't know. I just missed it. I don't know because in my notes at the fourth waymark, maybe Tess made a mistake there. I don't know. At the fourth waymark, it's really written here that until the borders of Egypt, and he leaves Demetrius to guard it, and then you have the Battle of Gaza. So I don't because it at the sixth waymark it comes to the borders at our time in Panium, when Russia loses in the deadly wound.
But you said something with the borders. When you said something about the six, you said, oh, maybe this is the to the borders.
Yeah, that's the second time that Antigonus comes back and then makes the peace of the dynasty. I need to come back to that. I'm sorry. All right. This is the line of the third Diadochi. And it's maybe interesting to go over it shortly again and then make the application with our time. When we see at the first waymark, we see this Battle of 𝘂𝗶𝗱, and we know that there is Eumenes is taken from the inside out by dust and his baggage train, and Antigonus kills him eventually. And we can compare it with 1989 and where the USA is taking the USSR, and he uses Antigonus uses here Seleucus and Python to fight against Eumenes. Here, the United States use the Vatican and the Mujahideen as their allies to fight against the USSR. After this battle, Antigonus doesn't need Seleucus and Python anymore. He kills Python. And Antigonus flees to, Seleucus flees to Ptolemy in the south and becomes his general. And we see that the Vatican, after the war in 1989-91, the end of the Cold War, we see that after this period, that the USA uses the Vatican to overthrow the USSR. They don't need the Vatican anymore. And you see that the relation between the Vatican and the USA is declining, is over. They don't use them anymore. They don't need them anymore. And that's very interesting because we, as conservative Adventists, we always look to the connection between USA and the Vatican, but there really isn't a good connection because after the war, after the end of the Cold War, the relationship is actually very bad. And then the interesting thing is that they don't need the Mujahideen anymore. And the Mujahideen is later on, they are really helped by the USA, given a lot of money. They are trained by the USA. And later on, they form the Taliban. So the Mujahideen later on becomes the Taliban as we know them now. And they make big trouble. They are now big trouble for the USA, but also in their own country. They overthrow the government. They take the power in Afghanistan. And after the fall of the wall in 1989, it is also in their relationship very, very bad. And we know that it leads that you have the terrorist attack from also Al-Qaeda and the Taliban in 2001.
November 9.
Oh, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. So when we look at the point of Python killed by Antigonus, the meat of Antigonus is starting to act like a dictator. We see that as well by the USA. USA invades Afghanistan, overthrow the Taliban. They are really, like killing Python, they are also killing the Taliban. And we know that a reaction on it is this terrorist attack. And this is also a very good proof that it's not an inside job that has been done 9/11, the 9/11 terrorist attack, that it is a terrorist attack and not an inside job.
Why is it a proof?
Because you see in this story that it fits in the story.
Python killed by Antigonus.
And USA behaves like a dictator after having good relationship with the Mujahideen, but after using them, misusing them, you see that they are getting angry with the USA by the way they are treated. And
so the Mujahideen
Is Python.
is Python.
you could say, yeah, I don't know, or the Vatican, that doesn't matter.
No,
But
it does matter, I think.
If you want to prove that
Python doesn't do anything; he's just killed.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying.
And 𝘂𝗍𝗃𝗃 is fleeing to the south.
Because you're saying this is a proof that 9/11 is not an inside job. Is there then is Al-Qaeda or the Mujahideen or Islam in this story of the third Diadochi War? That's Python. Is there?
Yeah, again, I think you have 𝘂𝗍𝗃𝗃 and Python, who are used by Antigonus to defeat Eumenes, and after that, he sees them only as a threat.
Oh, okay.
And you have in 1989 that the USA use Vatican and the Mujahideen to overthrow the USSR, and after this battle, they don't need them anymore.
Okay.
And they see them as a threat.
Okay.
And I think that in this story that Python is killed, so he could not do anything against them. But the Vatican, maybe it also comes back with the Black Hand, with the World War I line, that it is becomes more clear that that it is not an inside job.
Oh, there. Okay.
But I think only with this line you can also see, hey, it connects with the story. It fits that you see that they somehow are feeling mistreated and give this terrorist attack.
The 9/11 was not done by the Taliban but by Al-Qaeda. isn't it?
Yeah, but I think there's this connection is seen that Al-Qaeda and Taliban is there? I don't know.
No, that's a different.
I think that, for example, Osama bin Laden was a person who was also part of a group that was firstly, was he not also?
They all originate from the Mujahideen.
Yeah, was it
After that,
not
we
also
see
a person
that
that was first in contact with USA and
yeah.
was
Osama bin Laden
sponsored?
was part of the fight against
Yeah.
Russia or the USSR. And that was not Al-Qaeda didn't exist. That I think we have a line where I think Al-Qaeda started in 1988 or 1998, something like that. In that early 90 years time.
Mm-hmm. But it's a good question. It's a good
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
That's this. We can connect Al Qaeda and Taliban. They have the common characteristic that they are both terrorist Islamic organizations that have a common enemy. So we see at the second waymark some nice comparison. This ultimatum. We see these three allies, Cassander, Lysimachus, and Ptolemy, going to Antigonus and to say, "Hey, share power. What you're doing is not nice." And we see that again in 2003. The USA want to invade Iraq, and Germany, France, and Russia are saying to USA to not do that. They're not happy with it, and they say, "Do not invade Iraq." And they block Germany. If they are blocked, the USA are blocked by Germany, France, and Russia. I think in the United Nations they are blocked, but still, USA goes their own way, do their own thing, go their own way, and we know that they invaded Iraq. And also, the Vatican say, "Do not invade Iraq. Do not act like a unilateral power as a global policeman." So this is also interesting that actually the point of view that the Vatican has is somehow connected with the message that we as the movement have. And you see that also Russia and the Vatican are coming closer in having the same opinion about the way the USA is behaving. So they sent an ultimatum, the USA sent an ultimatum to Iraq. And in this ultimatum, everyone thinks that Saddam Hussein has done enough. And we will see in the ultimatum that is here in World War I, that there's a very nice we can compare it very nicely with this 2003 waymark.
What does it mean, Saddam Hussein shall stop back?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's something.
I thought it was the ultimatum of those three allies to America. No.
This ultimatum is more coming from the line of the World War I, where Austria and Hungary are sending so we will come back to that when I deal with the World War I line. But Germany, France, and Russia, together with the Vatican, are against the USA to invade Iraq, and the USA is sending an ultimatum to Iraq. You need to flip it around, because the USA is here behaving like Antigonus, like the dictator. And now, but the USA is sending an ultimatum. It's flipped, you can see, is sending this ultimatum to Iraq. But in the line of the third Diadochi, we see that its three allies are sending an ultimatum to Antigonus.
Yeah, okay.
So we need to see, this is, we have to deal with a history of failure and a history of success, and then the players sometimes are, or in wars and things are the other way around. But it makes it becomes more clear if we look at the First World War. So we go to the fourth waymark, and we see that this fourth waymark, USA is invading Iraq, and by invading Iraq, USA is attacking Russia in their spheres of influence. And that's interesting because during the Cold War, Iraq was always a sphere of influence on the side of USSR. But even after the Cold War, Iraq was still seen as a sphere of influence from Russia. And that's also important to understand, because that's the reason also why Russia tries to prevent USA from invading Iraq, from starting this Gulf War. And by acting this like in this unilateral behavior and world police. How long am I presenting already? Quite some time, huh? All right, carry on. Next waymark is the Battle of Gaza, the Battle of Raphia. And we know that in the Battle of Raphia, Russia defeats the USA by taking the spheres of influence. And this was also the case in the Battle of Gaza. We know that Antigonus comes in the spheres of influence of Ptolemy at this fourth waymark, and at the fifth waymark, you know that Ptolemy takes his territory back together with Seleucus. And we see that here in the Battle of Raphia. Which date can I write above the Battle of Raphia? Who remembers? Year 2019 was set. Yes, very good.
Je denkt te moeilijk.
And there's 2021 Panium. And at Panium in 2021, it's interesting because this presentation, of course, is done in the summer of 2019. So it was still in the future. Panium was still in the future then. And then the prediction was done that USA will strike back in the same manner as they did in 1989 against the USA. And that they will only get until the borders when the USA is pushing back. Who remembers what, when we go to the Battle of Raphia, who remembers what the defeat of the USA, the Russia defeats USA is written here? What does it mean? How did it look like? Who can shortly explain what how this defeat looks like? How did it in real
It
time.
was in spheres of
was.
influences.
It was in spheres of influences, of course.
And there was more than one. It was in Syria.
It was in Syria,
It was in Yemen,
Yemen,
in Libya,
Libya,
and Venezuela.
and Venezuela. Oh. Thank you.
I found my notes again.
Thank you for that. And some more information to it. There were battles fought. It were proxy wars, I think.
Yeah, it had to do with the fact that, for example, Russia supports Iran and the USA supports Saudi Arabia. And then you see that Saudi Arabia and Iran, that they are like mortal enemies. And it goes about Sunni versus Shia, and Syria is an ally of Iran and Russia.
Saudi Arabia is USA, yeah?
Yes.
And you have...
And Qatar, who is supported by the USA, wants a pipeline through Iraq and Syria to Europe. So Syria is a very strategic area, but they are allies from Iran and Russia, and there's this battle going on. It's not so easy. I should dive into it more, but
pretty
it has to
complicated.
do with all the allies and what they wanted with oil in that time.
Ukraine.
This
And
oil.
you see in Yemen, you see a civil war, and Saudi Arabia and Iran, both allies from the USA and Russia, support the different sides. And Libya, there's also a civil war.
Syria is also civil war, I think.
I don't know for sure that one.
Because it's in parts fragmented. Okay.
Venezuela as well. I mean,
Okay.
in 2019, for example, Russia sends help to Maduro in Venezuela.
Yeah, but when we talk about it, was it in my presentation? Oh, no, I sent a link in the chat 2 weeks ago.
I didn't see it yet.
That was on this also.
Yeah.
In 2019.
It was about 2019, about Рафля, what Рафля is. She does a presentation.
Okay.
She makes this list. She doesn't mention Yemen there in that presentation.
She mentions it in another one.
Syria, and China, and Ukraine, and Libya, and Venezuela.
Okay. Now maybe afterwards.
2019 is the highest. It's the point where Russia has the
most influence,
most power in the.
Yeah.
It's seen as a world player. It has influence. Oh yeah, in Africa, it also has the influence. There's a Russian-Africa summit, so there's a lot of influence in Africa, African countries.
Okay.
2019 marks the year where Putin has a lot of power.
And it's interesting that we can see that much of those spheres of influence, they kind of escalated all in 2014. All
It started, yes.
It started all in 2014.
Yeah.
All right.
So you see spheres of influence, but you also see the impeachment, the internal thing, and you see, what was the other thing?
But at the Battle of Рафля, we see that the king of the south is defeating the king of the north. So we see that the king of the south is defeating the king of the north.
We don't see it. Oh, sorry.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. For time, let's carry on. Maybe we can elaborate a little bit more on it as we discuss the whole study. 𝘃𝗹𝗃, 2021. Here the USA is striking back. The USA pushes back, and they then only go to the borders. And the king of the south here receives his deadly wound, what eventually will lead to this death at Zevende-dags. What was that about?
What? 𝘃𝗹𝗃.
USA is striking back. So we see that there's a battle of Raphia, where the king of the south is winning. And at 𝘃𝗹𝗃, we see that the king of the north is striking back. We see in the line of the third Diadochi that Antigonus comes back, and he stands by his son, Demetrius, who just lost the Battle of Gaza and takes back Syria, has to deal with the Nabateans and Seleucus. And in 𝘃𝗹𝗃, we see that the king of the north is fighting against the king of the south, and the king of the north wins, king of the south loses. But how does that battle looks like?
It's also spheres of influence.
Of course, spheres of influence. Is the proxy war? Is the information war?
You see it in Haftar in Libya is losing. In Yemen, it's struggling. In Venezuela, Maduro is struggling more than ever. In Syria, there are new sanctions for Assad. So you see again the same spheres of influence.
This is 2021.
Yeah.
Mhm.
𝘃𝗹𝗃.
Ukraine, you could maybe even also support of Ukraine. Syria as well. In Yemen. But it would be interesting to look deeper into it, what happened exactly.
Yeah, but that's interesting because I prepared this presentation, and so this detailed information is lacking for me.
Mhm.
So it's very helpful to have your input. And then we arrive at the Sunday law, and the Sunday law is the death for the king of the south at the 7th wave mark.
What presentation was this one? Okay.
Don't know anymore. Too long ago.
So let's go to the World War I. Are you all awake? Are you all hanging on? Are you all happy? Still happy with the presentation? Take a sip of water. Take a sip of tea, and let's dive into the World War I. World War I has some introduction as well. World War I starts in 1914, as we see here, but there's some story to it. So let's dive into it. We have the Bosnian crisis. The Bosnian crisis in 1908, and there's this conflict. The conflict between two superpowers, you could say. It is Austria-Hungary, that's considered as one power, and you have Russia, and Russia has some small players in this region, like Serbia and Bosnia. And Austria, Hungary, and is versing Russia, but then in the spheres of Russia's influence, which is Serbia and Bosnia. Austria and Hungary are taking control over Bosnia. and that's a sphere of influence. But Serbia wants to have Bosnia as well. And out of this crisis develops a lot of hatred. And this hatred develops further into a terrorist organization. And this terrorist organization is called the Black Hand. And
It was Austria invading Bosnia.
I don't know if it was an invasion. I don't know. Did they take Bosnia? Maybe it was very easy. Was there a real battle? I'm sorry, I don't know.
Takes Bosnia. Okay. Terrorist.
And it is very important to understand that out of this unrest, this crisis, there comes a lot of hatred. And in this hatred develops as the Black Hand.
In which country? In Bosnia?
Serbia.
In Serbia.
But maybe they had also some players from Bosnia as well. Can imagine.
Okay.
And then we have June 28th, 1914. Not yet the war, but we are already in the year 1914. Then there is this terrorist attack. A terrorist attack on Austria-Hungary, because the Black Hand, terrorist organization, the Black Hand, they assassinate Archduke Franz Ferdinand. And Franz Ferdinand is the Archduke. Was an important person in the, like a royal person in the time of Austria-Hungary.
Duke is with a D, isn't it?
Duke. Oh yeah. I'm sorry. Now it is Red Duke. And
From Austria, huh?
yeah, this Franz Ferdinand is a nice 1914 looking person.
Can you do a little? Yeah, that will. Yeah. Thank you.
Of course. And of course, this there develops a reaction out of it. And it's interesting that there was a terrorist attack. It was not a conspiracy.
Oh, yeah.
Austria and Hungary had this ultimatum.
1914.
This reaction on this assassination was that Austria and Hungary had now an excuse for war. It was not the cause, because they wanted this war already for a long time. But now they had their excuse in their hands, like the USA having their excuse to invade Iraq. And firstly, they started with this ultimatum. They gave this ultimatum to Serbia, Austria-Hungary, a list of demands or war. And the interesting thing is that the rest of Europe is thinking, because that Serbia had fulfilled almost all the things on the list, and they think, okay, this ultimatum is okay, it will not be a war. But it was a surprise that 1 month after the attack on Franz Ferdinand, 1 month later, July 28th, we see that they start the war. And they they invade Serbia. So that's bringing us to this waymark. July 28th, start of World War I. Austria-Hungary invading Serbia. And of course, because Serbia is a sphere of influence from Russia, Russia responds. And that's on the 4th waymark. We see that there is this war starting.
Mhm.
Germany is on the side of Austria-Hungary, but also wanting to stop this war. And they have their plan. They have their plan to send in Lenin to stop the war in the East and overthrow it from the inside out. And Germany supports this Bolshevik party, and Lenin shall end the war and then eventually shall restore the peace between Russia and Germany.
Lenin was the Bolshevik party.
Lenin was the leader of the Bolshevik party. Yeah, Lenin. It was like this. Lenin was at the moment in Switzerland, and Germany wanted to have Lenin inside Russia with his ideas of peace and communism. They wanted him to go into Russia and have his influence. They sponsored him and they made this Bolshevik party and they put a lot of effort and money in it, but they sent Lenin with a train to Russia. And this train goes from Switzerland to Germany to Poland and some other countries, and they seal this train so that Lenin is, how do you say, theoretically, Lenin was not in Germany, and so there was no trade. It was not, how do you say?
He would leave the train.
Yeah, that he would not leave the train, but it was not Germany. So they want to erase all the evidence that Germany was the one who sent Lenin into Russia.
And how was he going to stop the war from inside out?
He was overthrowing the government with this October Revolution. And that is what he is doing. On November 8th, 1917, Germany sends in Lenin to Russia, and then this is the Red October. And it is called the Red October Revolution because it is taking place in October because of the other calendar that they were using in Russia. And Lenin overthrows the Russian government and he ends the war and makes peace between Germany and Russia. That's a very short version of what will really happen. So at March 3, we see this peace treaty. And that is in line with our peace treaty. Almost in line. Oh no, the Armistice Day, that's still coming. We have the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. And that's an interesting waymark. Because Lenin is stopping the war from the side of Russia. And he brings peace. And the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk is actually a treaty where Russia is surrendering to Germany. And that's a very important waymark.
So
Russia
then
is
Germany is the king of the
surrendered to
north
Germany.
and Russia is the king of the south. Isn't it?
Good question. Let me think. Let me think.
When you see that it's the Battle of Raphia.
You see that Austria-Hungary is
The
yeah
king of the-
is the king of the north because they are behaving badly and they fight against the king of the south in the sphere of influence. And then Germany is also that's maybe a bit confusing that Germany somehow steps in, but Germany is on the side of Austria-Hungary. And that's why it is called a world war, because there's a lot of countries that are connected into this war. So we have Russia surrendering to Germany at March 3, 1918. This is the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. But it's not the end of the war. They stop fighting, but it's not the end of the war. The war ends at Armistice Day, and that's November 11, 1918. And that is the point, the moment that Germany surrenders. Let's have a look at that one. That's at our 6th waymark, finally almost done. So we see that at the 5th waymark, Germany wins in the east with Russia, but on the other side, on the west, they lose. Because at November 11, 1918, we have this Armistice Day. Germany loses. Germany loses all what they gained out of the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. So it was a very big strike for Germany. It was only a short moment that they thought that they had won a lot from the point of the Brest-Litovsk Treaty. But then we see that some months later, at this Armistice Day, they lose their battle at the West Front. East Front, West Front.
I was just checking about Germany sending Lenin to Russia. It's here on the line. It says that it's November 8th. Where is that?
1917.
1917. Germany sends Lenin to Russia. But November 8th marks the beginning of the October Revolution.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
he was already in Russia.
Yeah.
He arrived there in April or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. In 17?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine it's a very
The
short
story
version.
of the train is before that, and then there's a little build up, and then in October you have the revolution.
April, you said, huh?
Yes, that's what I'm just doing. So.
And then you have this Red October.
Yeah, revolution.
Revolution. Yeah, thank
I
you.
thought it was interesting to read here that the German Empire allowed Lenin to travel from his exile in Switzerland through Germany to St. Petersburg inside a sealed train. The reason was that the Russian Revolution had replaced the Tsar in 1917 with a temporary government that wanted to continue the Russian participation in the First World War against Germany. The Germans hoped that Lenin would take over that government and end the Russian participation in the First World War, which would free up German troops for new offenses in the West.
So that's very interesting that they just did it.
Yeah,
it's really I can imagine. Yeah, it's unimaginable that what they planned, that it really that they succeeded in.
Yeah, because
just
that's what happened.
Bring one man into that country, give a lot of money to him, and then change the whole thing. And I think that's very interesting when we compare this to the line underneath, because Russia is also, of course, in 2016 had their influence in
Oh, yeah.
sending Trump, so to say. Thank you. Yeah, that's very nice of you to add that. So Germany wins at the East Front and loses at the West Front. King of the North wins at the East Front, and King of the North loses at the West Front, November 11, 1918. So they received their deadly wound. And at the Treaty of Versailles, we see at the 7th waymark, we see that this Treaty of Versailles in 1919, there Germany realizes how badly they have lost, and that's a real death to them. And that's bringing Germany in a very great crisis. And also this, somehow this armistice, this pause between First and the Second World War. Because it's 20 years later that the Second World War starts.
Do it wrong.
Oh.
Maybe no. Maybe.
I need to change my screen. Shall we go to the application of the First World War with our time?
Mhm.
All right, we see the in the Bosnian crisis and in the crisis that we see in 1989, we see that there's this thing that we can compare. We see out of the Mujahideen and the hatred, we see that there this terrorist organization is coming up, and they give their terrorist attack. During the Gulf War, we see that there are two superpowers. And this Gulf War conflict is also in the period of 1989. USA comes from Iran into Kuwait, and that's a sphere of influence that also Iraq wanted Kuwait. And Iraq is the sphere of influence we already said from Russia. So we see this how do you say? We see this unrest. And that's interesting because out of this hatred, the terrorist organization Al-Qaeda develops. Al-Qaeda. And Al-Qaeda later on gives this terrorist attack together with, of course, the Taliban. And this is such a nice overlap. It's really
So the USA invaded Kuwait, or what took?
Yeah, you have this Gulf
an
War.
ally of Kuwait.
You can go into the history of the Gulf War, and that is also in the history of, because the Gulf War, you have two Gulf Wars, because the 2003 war, they also call that the Gulf War. So that's sometimes a bit confusing. This Gulf War I, maybe, I don't know how they call it, and that's also in the 1989 history. And there Iran wants to invade Kuwait.
And Iran is a sphere of influence of Russia, and Kuwait of USA.
And Iraq is left, or is Iraq nou links of rechts van Iran? Links, hè? Links een beetje. I need to have my topographic map in order in my head, but then we have Iraq over here, and we want also to have Kuwait. And Iran is USA, and Iraq is Russia, and they both want Kuwait.
Isn't it the other way around?
No,
That Iran is supported by Russia and Iraq by the USA.
and Kuwait is probably Iraq. Kuwait is supported by the USA.
Oh, wait. Because Iraq here in this 2003 line, it is a sphere of influence from Russia.
Yeah, they probably both.
So they change players.
I think so, because in the beginning, the USA, they supported Saddam Hussein to power, and then later they became enemies. So and Iran was never really friends with the USA, I think so.
No, that's true. That's true, because also what they are doing now, Iran is against Israel. So
yeah, it's still like Iran is on the side as an ally with Russia.
So Iraq was in that period
In that time, yeah.
USA. All right. Thank you. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, this is just for me, this whole presentation is new, but I just know this is just from my historical knowledge.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. Thank you for adding what you know. So in this Gulf War conflict, we see these two superpowers, USA and Russia, and these two smaller players, Iraq and Kuwait. USA comes from Iran into Kuwait. USA comes from Iran into Kuwait. So that's interesting, a sphere of influence. So does it now? I don't know. We should look into the Gulf War one. I'm a bit confused now.
USA enters Iraq to deliver Kuwait, because Iraq had taken Kuwait. That's the whole reason. Sorry, are we talking about this Gulf War, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Iraq had taken Kuwait,
and that's why
the USA went there they went into Iraq and to deliver Kuwait.
Oh, okay. So Iraq was not an sphere of influence from USA. They take
Kuwait was.
Kuwait was a sphere of influence of the USA, and Iraq was, I think, still on Russian side.
I thought so
That's what
too,
you said even earlier.
Yeah.
both were on Russian side.
Well, there was a war. They were in war.
Iran
This was
is
the Iraq-Iran war.
Maybe, yeah.
They're Iraq and Iran. They are not friends. They are enemies.
Yes, because there's different religion.
Also, yeah, but also the political reasons, of course. Not just the religion.
All right, I really need to carry on. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But we see that this Gulf War is making hatred amongst a lot of people, and they form this Al-Qaeda group. And this Al-Qaeda group then makes this terrorist attack. And this terrorist attack gives the USA license to invade Iraq, because they are hating Iraq all the way from this period on. And it is a Russian sphere of influence, and they have to deal with Kuwait and oil pipelines and stuff. So we see that also in World War I. We see this Bosnian crisis develops a lot of hatred at the people in Serbia, because also Bosnia, but Serbia, and they kill this Archduke Franz Ferdinand. They assassinate him. It is a terrorist attack. And that brings license to Austria-Hungary to invade Serbia. Now we are here. And we see also that here at the Iraq War, the USA attacks Russia in their sphere of influence in Iraq. And when we see that to prevent or to make peace in this war, Germany sends Lenin to Russia. And in 2016, we see that Russia sends Trump to the USA. That's also interesting too, that they somehow try to infiltrate from the inside out. Then we have the next waymark with this treaty of Brest-Litovsk. Russia surrenders to Germany. And oh wait, I'm going too fast. I need to work from my notes, not from my head. Let's go back to this ultimatum one, because I have some things to add over here. The USA is sending an ultimatum to Iraq. And in this ultimatum, there was a list of demands, a list of things that they should do to Saddam Hussein. And the world and the United Nations, they were convinced that Iraq had done enough to avoid this war. But the US invades anyway, and Vladimir Putin responds. And we see from this moment, this 2003 waymark, that the relationship between USA and Russia is going to a very deep point, because Vladimir Putin in the future does a lot of things where the United Nations and USA and the whole world says, hey, don't do it, and then they say, yeah, but what about the invasion of Iraq that USA did? So this is always their stokpaardje, or their rod to their joker to say, hey, we can do whatever we like because the United States did it as well.
How did you word it? Russia is, since this time, Russia is what? So since this moment they invaded Iraq, Russia is
enemy, is becoming an enemy of not friendly anymore.
okay.
Here it is not Saddam Hussein shall stop back, but it is step back. If you look closely enough, you see that it is a not a oh. And that's one of the demands from USA to Iraq, that they want Saddam Hussein to step aside or there will be war. And then we have, for example, we have some articles that is showing that the removal of Saddam Hussein is a priority for George Bush. And that also in the media, it is seen that this terrorist attack is only giving George Bush more possibility to invade, to do his own will, and to invade Iraq. And they actually they torture a man that was from Iraq. They torture him so as long as needed until he proclaims, or he says, that there's a link between the 9/11 attack and Iraq. And that's what the CIA was doing. And Bush just terribly wants to go into war with Iraq. So it's really badly behaving. And we see that this in the Iraq War. Fourth waymark. Yeah, we see this attack from the USA at the fourth waymark here. We see the attack of the USA by no, in Iraq. We see USA attack Iraq, and that is USA attacking Russia and their sphere of influence at this fourth waymark. And then we have this nice comparison between Lenin sent by Germany and Trump sent by the USA to overthrow the government from the inside out. Trump comes to power in 2016 and he makes friends with Putin again. He brings peace, so to say. People are tired of ongoing conflict, and that same language is used by Lenin. But will be at a cost. It will cost the USA a lot, and we know that the USA is paying his taxes to it on its defeat by Russia. So that's interesting. Trump brings peace with Russia, and that will lead to a lot of losses in the spheres of influence that the USA had. The Battle of Rafia in 2019. If we look at the World War I, we see that there is an ongoing war on the Eastern Front. And this war is at this period over here, we see that this war in the Eastern Front is starting because Austria-Hungary is giving this ultimatum, and later on they invade Iraq. And we see that this war from 2003 on, we can also say that this is the start of the war at the Eastern Front. And that carries on to all the way until 2019. So we have 16 years of war on the East Front. And that's interesting because this whole period from 2003 on, we see that there's this conflict, and everything that we see between 2003 and 2019 is the same as we can expect in the coming future. It is all to do with spheres of influence and battles that is also mainly fought within information wars. And it was also a nice comparing out of the World War I. So if we look in the future, after the Iraq War, we see that, as Lisanne already told us, that in Syria, Venezuela, and Ukraine, from Raffia onto 𝗶𝗹𝗃, it's just, it's part B, so to say. We see it all being repeated in the same way. So that was the comparing that we could do with the World War I. I found that Russia surrendering to Germany and then Russia defeats USA. We see that there needs to be some flipping. We see in this fifth waymark the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. And then we see over here, we see the Battle of Raffia. So this treaty and this battle is not, how do you say, very easy to compare. But we see that players are flipped here, that Russia surrenders to Germany in the World War I, and that Russia defeats the USA in our line. So there's this flipping that we need to do when we look at the history of success, and we get our information from a line. It's not a history of success, it's a history of failure. And we see this deadly wound given to Germany at November 11 at the 6th waymark. And then we see 𝗶𝗹𝗃, also the deadly wound for the King of the South in 2021. So from this point on, we see really that it's needed to be flipped, because Germany gets his deadly wound, or Germany surrenders. And it is at 𝗶𝗹𝗃, we see that it's a deadly wound for the King of the South, for Russia. All right, I think this is all the information that we, for this presentation, we can talk about, because the presentation was in 2019, and everything that should happen in the future was, of course, not so detailed as we should know now.
This was a presentation of your own, right? This is not the presentation
No,
of the series
no,
that we're doing.
no.
Yeah, okay.
But it connected nicely with the presentation that we did on the World War II, what we discussed. Thank you very much. And I think it's good for the recording that we pray and then stop the recording. Dear God, thank you for helping us to look at the history, put it on a line, look at our own history, and see that we can do a lot of comparing and see that waymarks of history are giving us a evidence that you have everything in your hands, that we can have a confidence for the future, to know that in some way we can know what will happen in the future, what we can expect, but also to know that that you are still the one who is in charge of everything that happens in the world. As we look at these lines, we are already so far getting to the end of these reform lines, and that, yeah, eventually the waymark of the second coming will come closer. Please help us to be prepared, and help us that we not only know our history and our future, but also obtain a character that is fitted for heaven. We thank you for all your blessings. Be with us during the rest of this Sabbath. And we thank and praise your holy name. Amen.